What if everything you've been taught about fixing your life is a lie? In our lifetime, we've watched CEOs crumble, elite athletes quit, brilliant minds betray their potential. Why? Maybe they trusted coaches who missed the invisible war inside them. I believe that same war exists within each of us. The war between the stories we tell ourselves and the buried neural pathways screaming, what if it's too late? This evening, you'll discover what 97% of coaches won't say, not because they're evil, but because they're distracted. Distracted by what, you may ask? By your obsession with goals. Stick with us for the next 50 minutes. I believe we'll hand you a biological crowbar to pry open the jaws of self sabotage and unleash a strength lying dormant like an earthquake beneath your feet. So, as we go through all of this, I want you to understand this conversation right here. This conversation on Coach's Corner is where you will find true power. As you know, we like to start things off, and a lot of times we start off with definitions and things of that nature. I know, I kind of, forego that on Friday night on the Hearts of Men, but I
Mhm.
want to start off with kind of like a simple get us rolling into this conversation because I think it's something that number one, people need to hear. They need to hear it articulated from two certified coaches, right? And I want to start off by saying that both of us are certified coaches. I actually have a degree in coaching and I am also a certified coach. And I know my good friend over there. He is actually a counselor and a coach. So I think that's a good place to start based upon all of the credentials that we bring to the table because most people never knew that. Most people did not know the things that I just articulated. So, how would you describe coaching, the coaching process, and the ideal candidate for coaching? And I know I'm putting you on the hot seat right now, but this is going to be a good conversation because I think people need to hear it.
Mhm. I'm going to start with how would I describe coaching? And when I've talked to clients in the past and just people, I kind of relate it to, a football coach or a basketball coach in a sense. And their job is to take whatever you have right now and to try to make you better. You know what I mean? And in a similar stance, that's kind of what I believe coaches do. We want to take you from where you are right now to the future you. You know what I mean? Evolution, all of these different things, um, versus since you brought up counseling or therapists, sometimes what they do is they focused on the past, they focus on where you were in order to get you to where you are right now today. So say for instance, there's been something that happened in your past, there's been some trauma, everything ain't trauma, but there's been some things that happened in your life or whatever like this, and you can't seem to get past it or whatever, where that person, the therapist and the counselor, is to help you work through that stuff to get you to a better place today. Again, the coaching part is today towards going towards the future. Now, the counseling process to me is more of it's like a strategic partnership, I would say. It's two people working together. One's a coach, one's the coachee, and they're part of this. They're working together on this thing to get you to the future. And the ideal candidate is the one who paid the money. And I'm just playing. The ideal candidate is someone who is actually looking towards going towards the future. And with that being said, everybody is not necessarily a candidate. I have people come to me and they've talked to me and they say, oh well, my wife left me and I'm still trying to get over that. And I get it, but I'm just like, brother, this is probably not for you. Or it may be, but you may need a coach and you may need a counselor or a therapist. So you may need both. I do believe that there are some people who can navigate both, but I think in some cases it may be better for that person to kind of work through those things in their past And then once they've worked through those things and they have a handle on things to kind of move forward with the coaching. But the ideal candidate is kind of somebody who is looking, who is kind of hungry, and who is looking forward for growth in their life to be a better version of themselves, just up and up, different things like that. And don't have to, yeah, that right there. I was going to add something else, but I'm gonna leave it right there because I'm sure we're going to get into it.
Yeah, I love what you said. And I would just add to this does not contradict anything you say. This actually goes along with what you said. And that's ultimately how I describe coaching. It goes
Hmm.
alongside. It's
Hmm.
like there is a video, I can't remember, it's from a movie, of course. And it's a football coach, and it's this guy, this young kid. And the coach gave him a thing to do, a particular drill to do. And he started complaining. He told him to keep his head down the whole time, don't look up. And he's like, Coach, I can't do it. Now, the goal was that he was supposed to go from the goal line, I think, to the 50-yard line. And he was whining because it was started to hurt and it was painful and all of that stuff. And the coach kept saying, keep going, keep going, keep going, drive, drive, drive. Coach, this is, I can't make it. Keep going, keep going. And it just like you hear the music playing in the background and it was getting you excited as he was doing it. And then by the time the coach told him to stop, not only did he make it to the 50-yard line, he actually made it to the other goal line.
Mm.
That's the perfect depiction of what coaching looks like, because a coach goes alongside you so that they can help you achieve your goal. And most times you actually you go far beyond what you ever thought you could have done. That's like the best description of coaching that I can imagine, because you have to realize that everybody, I don't care who you are, everybody have limiting beliefs, right?
Hmm.
And so why do I say everybody? Because number one is true, and then number three, that helps to identify who the ideal candidate for coaching is. The ideal candidate is for the person who is tired of being limited by their beliefs. So now for me, I tend to look at candidates that fall in different categories. Number
Okay.
one, the person who I don't know if I'm ready for coaching, but I'm curious enough to give it a shot. Right. Now, that person to me is the most riskiest person to go with. However, I'll still work with that person to get them beyond the I don't know phase. And then
Hmm.
this person here is like, you know what? I know I'll need coaching, but whatever the but is, it doesn't matter what the but is, right? The fact that you know enough to say that I know I need coaching, that's the thing that I'm going to work with. And then this person up here, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Like, I know that there's something better for my life. I need you to work with me because I know for a fact that I can achieve it, right? Out of those three, this is the person I really want. But you know what?
Yeah.
Here's the idea.
It's
Even though
ideal.
here's the funny part about it. Even though this is the person I really want, this is the person I'm going to spend the least amount of time with,
Hmm.
simply because they have enough motivation within themselves to where they just need me to work with them briefly and they're going to run because they
Hmm.
have enough fire behind them to get it going. This person, I'll probably end up, this person right here in the middle, working with them, I bet you a dime to a dollar they'll move from here to here real quick. This
Hmm.
person, working with them, they'll move from here to here. So to me, I think everybody is ideal once you lean into the notion of what coaching is. Now, the process itself is exactly that, the process. And one of the things that everybody needs to understand is you have to trust the process. There are going to be days you're going to experience an amazing breakthrough. It's going to be like, oh my God, I did not know, right? There'll be days that you may end up crying. There'll be days that you're going to walk out of there. You're going to be like smiling from ear to ear because you're excited. And they're just going to be days that just is. And what I try to make sure that I help people to understand, do not be discouraged by the days that just is. I'm telling you, this is where people get discouraged right here. The days that just is. We had a meeting, we had a conversation, we talked about a few things, we unpacked some few things, we kind of plot a course ahead, and then great, that's it. Then we have those days of like, oh my God, I cannot believe it. So you'll get all of that, all the crying, and then on the other side, oh, I'm ready. I'm so excited. I cannot wait to come back and show you what I accomplished. You're gonna get all of that. So the emotional roller coaster within the coaching process exists, but you have to stick with it and trust the process. Some people, biggest mistake that I've seen people made, and I know this is not part of the question, but the biggest mistake that I've seen people make is that they get an inclination of what the future could look like. I'm good. I'm done now, and I'm gonna go. No, you ain't ready yet. You ain't ready yet, sea biscuit. You know what I'm saying? You want to take off running.
Sea biscuit.
I get it. You want to take
Yeah.
off running, but you don't have the stamina to run the race that you're trying to run just yet.
Mhm.
Give like my grandmother used to say, give time. Trust the process. And I land right there. Yeah, and I know you got more you want to add, so go ahead, bro.
Yeah, man, this is all coming full circle to me. So last year, we've already said before, I did a marathon. Well, this year and next year, I'm focusing on running track. So I haven't told anybody yet, but I actually got my first track meet on December, I think it's December the 7th, right? So I'm gonna run the 200 and I may run the 60. I haven't decided. But I haven't sprinted like that in years, other than but now I have a trainer and all of those things I've been going through. So I have a coach now, and I've always had, not always, but for the last few years, I've had a personal coach and mentors and stuff like this, but I haven't had a physical coach. And I've haven't had a I don't even remember the last time. It may have been high school the last time I've had somebody to like really coach me in anything physical. I've been the one who coaching and helping people along the way. So when I got this physical coach, and he's like, "All right, do this," and then we're working out, and he's like, "Pick your toes up, lift your knees up." Like I'm not used to doing it. I'm used to being on the other side. So it is all of those things I've been that you talked about, I've had days I'm just like, man, we ain't even do nothing. You know what I mean? Like that's it. And I've had days where I'm just like, man, I'm so over this stuff. But one thing I do know about, because I have been a coach, is that you have to trust the process. So I'm leaning in on trusting the process and also looking at the growth that I have made since I started back in August. So from August to November is when I started, how long I've been training. Totally different type of training. I used to run one way, and I ran track in high school, ran a certain way. All wrong. All wrong. 100%. Because now I got somebody who is, no shade to my coaches in high school, but you got 30, 40 kids out there. They can't really give everybody every single thing. But when you got the one-on-one, it's just me and him. I get to see everything. I get the bird's eye view. Like I said, pick your knees up, pick your toes up, don't run behind you. So it's funny how you said all of this stuff, because I am actually in that process right now in a physical stance. And a lot of those things are direct correlations to how things operate in the non-physical form of coaching too. So I thank you for saying all of this stuff. It's funny. It's crazy.
Yeah, man. Coaching is coaching is coaching. And
Coaching is coaching is coaching.
and I think to your point, right? You can have like a athletic coach, right?
Mhm.
And there are certain constraints and limitations in that arena.
Yep.
And sometimes we get it. Some
Yeah.
people who and I talk the difference between the two. You can have a 360-pound kid out there who wants to be a quarterback. I
Hmm.
mean, I got it, but you're a part of the team, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is to coach you to the strength of the team, not necessarily to the strength of your own individual desires,
Yeah.
right? But the difference in this arena is that it's not so much about the team now. It's like
Mhm.
your own individual desires. And the limitations, number one, is your physical limitations. Some of them may be like injuries, stuff like that. So that particular person
Yep.
needs to understand kinesiology and all of that other great stuff. In this arena, right? Now
Mhm.
you're talking about your psychological limitations, the ones that
Yep.
you impose upon yourselves. So in most cases, well, I won't say most cases, in my opinion, all cases, your coach need to have at least an understanding of some sort of psychology, human behavior, whatever the case may be. So now
Agreed.
in this arena, sure, you may have imposed limitations on yourself, but the idea of the coach in this arena is to help you release those limitations. And again, that kind of takes us back to where we're headed here, because today's conversation is about 5 hidden truths that will help you transform your life and your career right now. So, one of the first things I want everybody to understand is that a coach is not an advice giver. That's one of the best things. Like, you'll be surprised how many people call me and be like, "Hey man, can I ask you a question about that?" Sure. So what would you what is your advice on this? I mean, what do you want to do?
Mhm.
Right? A lot of times they get frustrated because I won't give them an answer. Or, depending upon how close we are, I may
Mhm.
give them like some type of story that I went through in the past or whatever. But most people think coaches are advice givers. Like,
Mhm.
just not even getting into the question yet, just this alone. Like, what is your take on this?
100% agree, and I think this goes directly into what you was talking about, the difference between some of the, an athletic coach versus what we do on this side. Athletic coach a lot of times is going to tell you, lift up your knees, do this. They're going to give you advice all day long because they want you to be better. And one way is by showing by example all these different things, but it don't work like that over here. So I am 100% in agreement. I don't have my glasses on. So when I first saw that, I was like, coaching equal advice. I was like, I said, that's going to be my first rebuttal. But I see the little thing. I see the hash. I mean, the little diagonal mark to cross it out. So I'm 100% with you. I think sometimes I will say this. I will be honest, when I first started out in coaching a little bit, I did sneak in a little bit of advice until I got a little bit better understanding about what coaching was. And it's not for me to give people advice. It's for me to walk alongside, like you said, their journey. This
Right.
is their journey. I'm walking alongside of them.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you, like 100% there. I think, um, and no shade to anybody else. I know we live in a time right now where you see 100 new coaches show up every day. And
Mm-hmm.
this is one of those indicators right here. One of those indicators when we start seeing, now it's a difference, that because this right here isn't coaching. I want everybody to understand that when you see a podcast happening, a podcast is not coaching, because in most cases you're getting advice, you're getting tricks, tips, whatever that looks like. But the other side is like, there's a gap between the advice that you're getting and where you are trying to implement it. And so a lot of people end up like, well, I listen to this person, I listen to this person, and it sounds real good and it's motivating, but I find that I can't do it. There's a reason why. And they already know that. That's why they don't mind sharing those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that's what you have to consider as well. So, to the point, coaches don't give advice, but what is the issue when we do? What's the critical difference between a coach handing you a solution versus that coach actually mining, and I'm talking mining like drilling or whatever, mining
Mm-hmm.
your own wisdom for the results that you want?
What's the critical difference between a coach handing you your solutions versus managing your own? Um, I guess I'll start with the negative. When you take somebody's advice, now you have someone to blame if it don't work out. So if I say coach, or if I say whoever, hey man, you need to leave your wife, or you need to stop doing this. I'm just saying, I I am 100% sure that there have been coaches that have told people to leave their spouse. But however, when you do that, now you're on the hook for that. You know what I'm saying? So again, I said I'm going to the negative side. And then what happens is now again, you have someone to blame if it don't work out. And that's not a good position to be in as a coach. And then where's your work? You know what I'm saying? What have you doing? What have you done? And what if it don't work out? You know what I'm saying? It's like, because I'm telling you this, but I don't know every single thing about you or your situation. Only you know. Only you know every single thing about you. So it's probably better that I help talk you through a problem than for me to give you the advice or the information. So again, just short answer is this is I think that it takes the responsibility off of the person and then puts it on the coach.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. Um, I think in conjunction with what you said, like coaching, one of the things that happen during the coaching process is that you start to develop these critical thinking skills. And it's not to say that you did not have thinking skills prior to, but during the coaching process, those critical thinking skills will be refined. But the other side to it is those creative thinking skills that goes along with the critical thinking skills. Critical thinking, problem, identifying the problem, creative thinking, coming up with coming up with different solutions to solve said problem. Well, when a coach hands you the solution, I don't have to think critically, nor do I have to think creatively. And so what ends up
Hmm.
happening is that I end up creating and developing a level of dependency on my particular coach. So every time you turn around, I'm like, hey, Coach Unc, can I talk to you real quick? Hey, Coach Unc, can I talk to you real quick? Hey, Coach Unc, man, you don't call me 5 times a day.
Yep.
I'm not answering the phone no more. Making decisions, right? So that's kind of like one of the issues that happen when a coach hands you the prescribed solution. You're dependent upon that person. Now, change over when they help you to mine your own wisdom. Now you're exercising critical thinking skills through the art of carefully crafted questions. And then from there, you come up with those solutions. And not only do you come up with solutions, you get to analyze those solutions in real time with that coach. That's the notion that you actually have a coach that is actually on your team and is working for you for your benefit. That's how I like to look at it and describe it when it comes down to this. So just my thoughts. Anything else you want to add in relation to this?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think at some point you can start enabling your clients when you are just giving the advice and giving all of the information and stuff like that. It's like, like you talked about the the critical thinking part and stuff like that is you came to me to be coached for a reason, to be coached. You know what I mean? And part of that is to help develop, not saying that you're not a critical thinker, but in this area of your life, maybe this is what you need to go a little bit deeper, to think outside of the box, to figure out how I can maneuver and navigate this whole thing. And again, I'm walking with you on the journey. I'm here, but at the same time, what's going to happen when the coaching is over and there becomes a problem? If you haven't developed or honed some of these skills, then you may find yourself right back in the same situation again. So I just think it's best that everybody, that you come up with your own solutions about stuff. And again, like I said, you don't want to be blaming somebody else for something not working out. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, life, a lot of life is about choices and decisions.
Right.
So that's on you.
Yeah. I do agree with that. Now I kind of want to change gears because I know a
Hmm.
lot of times we talk about the art of effective communication and we talk about how a person's silence is actually stonewalling and how it can be an issue. But in the coaching process, it's different.
Hmm.
So how could a coach's silence become your most powerful breakthrough catalyst?
So I'm gonna add a little bit of counseling in here, because this is something that we happens on both sides, and that's that silence. They call it an awkward silence, but for me, it ain't awkward. I'm just sitting there waiting. What happens when we're having, when I'm answering this, I'm speaking as maybe that I'm in a coaching session with a client, right? So that's the lens that I'm coming from to answer this question. So when I'm having a conversation, I'm with the client, and I just sit back and I pause. We having a conversation and I pause. This is an opportunity for you to start thinking, right? What are you thinking? What's going on? The wheel should be turning right now. So I'm pausing, allowing my client, or allowing the client to come and get that. It's kind of like we're in the army, when they be like, hey, we studying for, we got a test, or we training for something, and then we stumped the foot. It's like, hey, it's gonna be on the test. I ain't telling you it's gonna be on the test, but I'm stomping my foot. I think this is one of those times too. It's like, hey, it's something here. Now it's time for you to think and to try to come up with a problem, not a problem, with a solution, maybe not even solution, but it's just time for you to think. You know what I mean? So for me, a lot of times when the coach is silent, it's an opportunity for you to think. Um, yeah, that's what opportunity to think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of times when we give responses, we
Mhm.
give like that surface level response. And I give you a perfect
Mhm.
example. When you see somebody, you speak to them, you have an automatic response. Hey, how's it going, man? I'm good. How you doing? You didn't put any thought into that. That was just an automatic response that you had.
Mhm.
Well, the a skilled coach finds a way to get beyond that. So after you give the surface level response, there's another question that's coming behind that one, right? And then then you may have another surface level response, and then there's another question that comes behind that. By the time he or she gets to that third or that fourth question, like you don't have a surface level response at that point because they're digging deep now. So now what you're going to have to do is search your subconscious database. That's what's happening during that silence. The coach is skilled enough to be comfortable with the silence. Most people don't like silence. Like he said, like Garfield just said, they feel it's awkward. Well, for us, it's not awkward. It's good. When we hear silence, we're good. We're good. And we will sit there and wait it out.
Yep.
And,
100%.
and just sit there. And a
Uh,
lot of times, if we're on the phone, it's easy. If we're face to face, it's just like we're eye contact locked in and we're just
mhm.
because
Yep.
the stare, I'm just being honest. The stare, I hate to say this, it feels pressuring to the other person. And
Mhm.
what they're doing is like, oh, the clock is ticking in their head. I got to come up with an answer. Come up with an answer. And then the next thing they're inclined to say is, I don't know. It's always, but you know what? Okay, got it. You don't know. However, you know something. What is it that you know in relation to what we're talking about right now? So
Mhm.
now we don't allow I don't know to be an answer to where
Nope.
in everyday conversation, I don't know is just enough for us to move around and do something else. So it's like that awkward silence, although it is a thing that's kind of frowned upon in the space of communication, it's not so much frowned on in the coaching arena. But
Mhm.
I will say that there are just like anything else, like I said, coaching is a relationship. And if we have not said that yet, it is. The coaching process is a relationship. In the beginning stages of it, we're developing relationships. But every relationship, we need to be able to identify where there are red flags, which is point number two, right?
Mm.
You, as a person who desires to be coached, need to be able to identify red flags when it comes down to that relationship. So, my good friend, I want to throw it out there first. And if you don't want to take this one first, I am 100% good. I can go first. Which seemingly minor behavior from a coach should immediately raise alarm bells?
I'll go first.
Sure.
I think one is when the coach start giving you solutions. I think that's a huge red flag. Again, we talked about earlier, we don't give advice. We also not in the habit of giving out solutions.
Right.
I think once you start giving out solutions, you're pretty much in a sense giving advice. And it it keeps the client from going forward. You know, a solution, and I think I'm speaking for myself. This is what I kind of talked about early on in my coaching. Is I wanted to. I was like, man, this is easy. Man, I already know what your problem is. You just need to do X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? And I get that as a coaching because most of us come into this profession as a coach because we want to help people navigate whatever it is that they may have going on. Some people get into it for this and some people don't. I got into it because I wanted to help people. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Because I've learned some things in my life, um, and I want to figure out how I can use my knowledge and information, what I've learned over my years, to help and benefit somebody else. So it's like early on, it was like, man, I know the answer. Even the awkward silence, it was awkward for me initially. But after doing this for a few years and stuff like that, it's not awkward anymore. But I did think a huge red flag or what seemingly minor behavior from a coach that immediately raise alarm bells is when that coach is giving you solutions to every single thing that you got. It only had to be everything, but when they're handing out solutions like candy.
Yeah, I do like the fact that they're handing out solutions. I agree with that. Um,
Hmm.
I will add to what you're saying. is that a huge red flag is when they start projecting onto you. That
Mm,
is something that coaches have to be consciously aware of. And it's part of the thing that you're taught when you're actually going through the process of learning to become a coach. You have to be so aware of yourself, scanning yourself, but not focused on yourself. You have to focus on them. And that's a difficult thing for most people to do. That's why I say everybody, like, I'm not knocking anybody else out there, right, who claim to be a coach, but the question that I always wonder is that whether or not everybody who claims a thing is really the thing that they're claiming. Because ideally, if I am projecting something, especially if it's something that I'm experienced in this coaching environment, like you said, oh, I know what your problem is, right? So if I automatically project that on you because I think I already know, then that's
mhm.
a red flag. Like that is a serious red flag. Any person who understands the art of coaching understand that that's not what we do when it comes down to helping the client. Because again, how am I helping the client if I automatically, like you said, oh, I know what your problem is? Well, that's not your job. Your job is not to identify the problem. Your job is to help them move forward. Right. So that's kind of like the concern. And for me, I just want to put a pin right there. That is a huge red flag. Now, I do want to transition from identifying red flags to understanding the difference between a red flag as it pertains to the relationship between coach and client to predatory relationships, right?
Before we go, can I
Sure.
add something to that?
Absolutely.
And the only thing that I wanted to add to that was when coaches, don't forget, when coaches like to throw in their lifestyle all the time. Oh well, this when I already been through this, man. You know what I mean? And and in my life, my wife left me and blah 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 blah. And you know what I mean? Now I'm talking about me. This client paid their X amount of dollars to not hear about my story. They paid me to help navigate from where they are to where they want to go. So I think that's a huge red flag too, is when your coach is starting to is making and putting a lot of emphasis on their life and maybe what they have been through. This ain't about the coach, like you just said. This is about the client.
Yep. I'm so glad you interrupted me, right? And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm
Yeah.
glad you injected that because that's a really good one. Hijacking
Hmm.
the conversation is a big no-no. Like we
Hmm.
don't, it's not, this is not the opportunity to talk about my life and how great and wonderful my life is, or the things
Hmm.
that I've been through, or to try to make you feel comfortable based upon what you've been through. And yeah, I've been through that as well. Let me explain to you how. No, like
Yeah.
even in that, and this is key. I want people to remember that I have to ask you permission to do it. I can't stress that enough. I don't
Hmm.
get to inject. I have to ask you permission to share something that may help you. And if I'm
Hmm.
not doing it in that fashion, I'm doing it wrong. So
Yeah.
that's why I say I'm so glad you stopped me from moving forward and injected that piece because
Mhm.
that's a huge one.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's different than in counseling, because in counseling it's okay, but it should be very minimum. But it is a tool that we use in counseling. I can't think of the name of it, but it is a tool that we use in counseling. It is talking about maybe something that happened in your life or something like that. But it's very few and far between. But like you said, in coaching, that's a no no.
Absolutely, man. This is listen, y'all getting it today. I don't know if you realize it yet.
They
Um,
are.
Predatory coaches, and this is interesting, and this one might be a little sketchy. So I think I'll go first on this one, if that's okay.
Okay. Yep.
Predatory coaching is a thing. Um, I know people think that it helps. So what do I mean when I say a predatory coach? Well, if we have crossed the bridge in that person's life, and this happens all the time. We've crossed the bridge in that person's life, and then they got to a point and that person regresses. Well, predatory coaching is taking something that that person has accomplished or overcame and then bringing it back up and using it against them at a later point in time.
Mm.
As a coach, I cannot take a thing that you have that you're working your way out of. Now let me be completely transparent as we say this. Whoever I was in 1982, yes, I'm that old. I'm sorry. Whoever I was in 1982, that person still exists, right? It's just that that person isn't in the driver's seat today. I know we like to talk about testimonies and I've moved on and I'm no longer that person. Not true. That's not a true statement, right? That's just the stories that we tell ourselves to make
Mhm.
ourselves feel good about ourselves. But whoever I used to be, I still have the potential to go back and be that person. What I should not do in the coaching arena is use that person when it shows back up against that person, right? Because at any given point in time, okay, this will make it make sense. In the army, I used to curse like a sailor.
Mhm.
I use that. I say it out there. I was in the field artillery, so everything that we said was it was colored with adjectives, adverbs, and superlatives. Do I do that now? No, I do not. Right? I tried the best that I can to ensure that those words are obsolete. Do I have the potential to do that? Absolutely. I really do. And depending upon some people, it's like, mm, you almost got me. You almost got me, right?
Yeah.
Well, if this was a coaching practice and the person that I'm talking to cursed like a sailor, and then one of the things that that person wants to do is overcome that, and we've gotten to the point to where a lot of their conversation does not include those colorful words, and then one day they had a bad day and they came in and just laid it on thick. Well, it's not for me to say, "Oh, you don't went back to who you used to be, huh? You done decided to turn back the hands of time and start the clock." Oh, no, that's me using the thing that you're trying to overcome against you. That is weaponizing your own insecurity. And I use cursing. It's a very simple example, but take it a step further to something a person feel insecure about, right? So that's kind of like what that looks like. And I think that becomes problematic when we do that to where ideally as a coach what I should be doing is asking them the question to make them reflect on why was that available for them in that time. So that's just kind of like how I look at it as it pertains to this question.
Yeah. I don't know if I have too much to add to that. I think what I would like to add is probably a why. Um, and my why would kind of fall under two categories. One, maybe ego, because I do believe that sometimes people get into this profession for whatever reason. I think sometimes ego is involved, and they think that they're mightier or higher than wherever they are. And then I also think another reason why people weaponize it. I know we talking about how, but the why is to money. Is to keep you coming back for more. Like if I can keep coach in this space and this stuck and not help him navigate and give him the answers and stuff, then he's gonna stay with me for a year, and 2 years, and 3 years, and 4 years, and we still talk about the same insecurities that he had when they came in. So I think a reason why, what I mean, there are some predatory coaches and weaponizing is because of those reasons. And I'm not gonna. I would like to interject a question right here just because I went to the why.
Sure.
And I believe that there is a certain amount of time that on a minimum that I should work with a client. I also believe that I don't know if I believe that I should be working with the same client for 10 years, especially about the same thing. Because if I'm teaching skills and we're honing skills and different critical thinking and stuff like this, at some point, you know what I mean? Grasshopper, you got to go on out there and you got to fly and they got to kick the bird off the nest, so to speak. But when it comes to coaching, since we talked about time and money, do you believe that there is a minimum amount of time that we should be working with clients?
Yes. Um,
Mhm.
for me, it's 6 months because there has to be a level of commitment.
Mhm.
I think sometimes what people want to do is like stick their toe in the water and
Yep.
so what they'll say, well, I do it for a month. That's a waste of time.
Yeah.
You will not see the change, any change in a month. I'm just going to be
Mhm.
completely transparent.
Yeah.
6 months, you will see something change. It may not be
Mhm.
earth shattering. 1 year, you'll see a change.
Yeah.
That's the whole notion. Like I even talk about mindset and motion. That's what mindset and motion is about. Mindset and motion is a commitment for a year. So if
Mhm.
you have not decided within yourself to commit for a year, mindset and motion is not for you. Maybe
Mm.
one of the other offers that I have is for you, right? They'll let you do less than a year. But mindset and motion is that robust simply because at within that 1 year, you should see something. And if it is not, I'm just gonna be honest with you. If I can't help you see something, and keep in mind, this is the thing that's totally dependent upon the client, not me. Because
Mhm.
I don't implement the things that we talk about in that person's life. But if there's a year that goes by and that person sees absolutely nothing different in their life, then I won't deal with them another year. Just
Yep.
simply because for whatever reason, there is something that is preventing you from growing with me. So you need to go find somebody else. Now,
Mhm.
I say that to say this. The other side of that, and this is another predatory practice, and you kind of mentioned this, and I kind of want to go in a little bit of detail with this. And I don't care who this is. This is therapy, this is counseling, this is coaching, this is anything that has to do with one on one interaction for your growth and development. If at any given point in time you do not see any progression happening, then it's time for you to move on. If
Mhm.
that person makes you feel bad for wanting to move on, you should have broke contact with that person a long time ago because they've shown indicators that they are a predator. I'm I'm just gonna call a spade a spade.
Mhm.
I should not want you to be handicapped to me. I'm just saying. Now,
Yep.
if if a coach is really good at what they do, then they don't just limit themselves to coaching. They
Yeah.
should be coaching, they should be mentoring, they should be doing things that they should be training. So they should be able to understand the difference between what coaching is, what training is, and what mentorship is. Understand training and mentorship does not fall in the same category of what we're talking about right now. So can you go from the coaching arena into a training arena, then to a mentorship arena, and back to the coaching arena? Absolutely.
Mhm.
That's the best way to make that's the best way to maximize your time with that person because you recognize that that person got something that you need to get from them, and at the end of the day, they find a way to pull out the best in you. So
Mm.
that's different. But oh my gosh, if you are with somebody and you say, "Hey, I think I need to move on," and they make you feel bad about moving on, run. Don't even have no further conversation with them because number one, not only does that violate our ethical standards, that's just not a good person. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Don't say it what it is. I'm sorry.
Yep. I'm glad we went there.
I am
We
too, man.
I'm glad we went there.
I am too.
Man.
Um, the next one is for the sake of time, we're not going to talk about it. Your brain secret toolbox, and this is a good one, but it's a reason why I'm not going to talk about it, number one time, and number two, if I was to get into this, we will stay here for at least another 30 minutes. So just know that your brain secret toolbox is another one. But we're going to get into the test. Now, it's not going to be three questions that we're going to give you. And by all means, if you construct your own question, by all means, you can actually inject that into also. And I'm going to give you an example of what one looks like. You are seeking a coach for, in your mind, I want you to fill in the blank, XYZ. I want a coach to help me get over my insecurities for this. I want a coach to help me, whatever. So you fill in the blank. What single question exposes whether a coach can truly aid you in solving your unique problem? Now, I know I probably put you on the spot there.
Mhm.
So
Super on the spot with this one.
let me go first. Let me
Okay.
go first, and hopefully this helps. One of
Mhm.
the things I believe, and this is just me, I think for anybody out there who's looking for a bigger a job, I'm about to help you out. If you go on an interview, we honestly believe that I'm interviewing for the job. And so we'll go on the interview and that person will ask us like five, maybe 10, whatever questions. And then we're trying to answer those questions to the best of their ability. But a good employer at the end of that will ask you, do you have any questions for me? And for the most part, people say, no, I don't have any questions. I just want you to know I greatly appreciate you giving me this opportunity, blah, 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 blah. You know, all of the cookie cutter stuff that you're supposed to do. You just missed a golden opportunity to interview them to understand whether or not you want to actually work there. So when you're seeking a coach, what single question exposes whether your coach can truly aid you in solving your unique challenge? Ask them a question about your unique challenge, and when have they
Mm.
ever helped anybody based upon that thing? If they don't have an answer, I mean, I get it. That's fine. And that's not a bad thing. That just means that they'll never work with it. But I give you a perfect way of looking at it. If they give you a generic answer that sounds along the lines of, you know, I help, everyone. Well, they don't know what they're talking about. I'm just going to say that. No coach helps everyone. Now, depending upon what they're specializing in and understanding their niche, that helps out a lot. But specificity shows that they have a methodology. And if they have a methodology, that person can actually help you. So that's the key, understanding their niche and understanding whether or not they have a methodology.
Mm. So here's what I wrote down. Here's my question. So we talked about the critical thinking and honing skills and different things like that. So with that being said, here's my question that I would ask my coach. How will you help me think, not just tell me what to do? So that's a question that I would ask a coach because like you said, I don't man, uh, I think I'm on with this one.
Mhm.
Um because I think what happens, like you talked about the critical, I'm just looking at my
Sure.
question.
I got you.
Um and trying to make it make sense more
Mhm.
because I got the question, but then I didn't have time to develop a more response to it. But I think that when you have a coach in anything, like you talked about the critical thinking, you want somebody to help you think. You want somebody to help you with the process. So if that person all they're going to do is tell me what to do,
Sure.
then you're not the coach for me. But
Right.
then at the same time, I don't know if I'm looking at this question, I don't my hesitancy part is because I don't know if the brand new person who's seeking coaching know to ask this question.
Right.
I think I came up with this because I've been in this space for a little bit of time, but I don't know initially if this would have been something that I would have asked my coach. So now I'm trying to go back pre-coaching, pre-counseling, and trying to figure out what I would ask a coach.
Well, see,
Um,
that's the beauty of Coach's Corner. Now they know.
say less.
I'm not trying to be funny. I'm being for
Yeah,
real.
yeah,
But
yeah.
to your question was a how as it pertains to the process, which I
Hmm.
still think that that's a good question.
Hmm.
Because what if I don't know my unique challenge? I know I have a challenge, but that's why I need
Hmm.
a coach to try to help me unpack. So this is helping somebody. Watch
Yeah.
this. I know I have a challenge, but I need a coach to kind of help me to unpack this challenge because I don't know where I'm stagnant. I don't know why I'm stagnant. I just know that I am, and I need a coach to help me to unpack it. So your question, ask the question again.
How will you help me think, not just tell me what to do?
Right. That is a great question for the person who know they have a challenge but just don't know what that challenge is.
Mm,
Here's the funny part about it. I automatically have an answer right now. But here's what I do not want to do. I do not want to give the answer right here for a predatory coach out there who hears it and now would adopt my answer as their answer. But
mm,
so if you want to know my answer, send me a direct message. I'm serious. I'm not joking. If you as a person who is looking for coaching and you really want to know the answer to that question, send me an email. Dwayne Dwyer, Dwayne Dwyer at totalmindsetshift.com. And I have an answer that I will send back to you instantly.
mm.
Because if you do not have a process already, it's hard for you to answer that question. But
Yeah.
my answer to that question not only is already in my head, but it's already written in the documents that you got to sign before we get into this agreement. And the
Mm,
and the documents tell you what coaching is, what coaching is not, so you'll know what to expect.
mhm.
It's that simple. But for other people out there, they may not have that stuff. And so
Yeah.
now, and I don't want to get into the whole details and ramifications behind that, but yeah,
Yeah.
it should exist. So I think that's a great question.
Mm.
Yeah, man.
But again, I came up with that as somebody who's been in the space.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't think I would have asked that question initially. I probably mine would have probably been simple. how can you help me work through this problem? You know what I mean?
That's still good.
That's still
That's still a good question, yes.
yeah.
Because at least you know that the person that you're talking to has not only the technical know-how, right? But also they have the ability to articulate it. Sometimes people have the technical know-how, they just don't know how to say it. Well, I'm
Mhm.
sorry, you're not a good salesperson in relation to that. That's just something for them to get better at. Some
Mhm.
people know how to articulate a thing to such a degree that they blow smoke, and most people don't even know they blow smoke because it sounds really good,
Yep.
right? But for the person who has the technical know-how and have the ability to articulate it, that's a great question. And that helps you to understand. It's not, and that's why I started off with the interview thing, like the job
Mhm.
interview thing, because I think we're not conditioned or trained to ask to qualify the people that we get in relationship with. We just know that, yep, they got a degree in it. I should go to them. Kudos. Like, how many times have we ever qualified our doctors?
Mm.
Just being honest.
That part.
Yeah. And that's why I say what I say. But yeah, man, I think that's a good question.
Okay.
Um, as a coach, I think I have time to do this. And we're
Okay.
gonna go a little over, y'all. I do apologize, but just to give us about an additional 15 minutes. As a coach, in the process, and this is a different type of question, there are going to be things that we ask you, or you may not even get into the relationship yet. This may be during the qualification stage. If I ask you a question, right? Um,
The
I'm sorry.
coach asking the client.
Well, if the client asks me a question, or the potential client asks me a question, and
Mhm.
then I give them the process on how I do business, and it makes them, and I don't know, but I see it in their face that it's like, ooh, you know what I'm saying? Like some people, they'll give you that facial expression. Generally, when something hits them, and some people say poke them, prick them, whatever that looks. When something hits you, a great question for a coach to ask is, why does where do my solution make you uncomfortable predict coaching success? Right? When we look at questions like that, why is that a great predictor of success? When I look at a when like because we're qualifying each other, right?
Mhm.
And you just ask them a question based upon what you see, right? Where do my solutions make you uncomfortable? And the solutions that I'm talking about are the solutions that I gave you to the question that you asked, not the solutions
Mhm.
in your life. But it looked like it was uncomfortable. Why is that a great predictor of success?
Mm. Honestly, you stumped the chump right here. I have been stumped. Um, mm, this is a good question just for me. Just being in my position right now. Honestly, I don't know if I have a response to this one.
That's okay.
Um, yeah, I'm a wave the white flag on this one, man. This one, yeah,
So
stumped
number
me a
one,
little bit more.
number
Yeah.
one, you're not a chump, right? We
Okay.
and I get it, I get it.
Yeah.
That's an old
Yeah,
phrase.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Discomfort, identify limitations. So
Mm.
ask you a question that makes you uncomfortable in the moment that helps me to understand that I've just hit the limits of your comfort level. That means now, based upon that question, now we can get into the pathway of growth. Growth is found outside of your comfort level. So once and that question is specific and that word uncomfortable is strategic, right? Because if that person can answer that question, that means that that person for me is an ideal candidate. And that's
Mm.
why I gave the 3 categories previously, and it doesn't really matter where they fall in at. If they can tell me why, I have a lot that I can work with. That's how I can say this person can move here, this person can move here rather quickly. So, you know,
Yeah, I'm still looking at this question. Where do my solutions make you uncomfortable? I wanna I gotta dig into this some more on my own. That's I like that question.
yeah. And keep in mind, I
'Cause
want to reiterate, the solution is not to anything specific to them. It is
mhm.
the answer to the question that they ask me about how I can help them.
Mm. There I think being in the client position may or may not having to do this, but I think it do. There are going to be some uncomfortable times. I think that, in my personal opinion, that's part of it. I think as we move along in the client process, um, I ain't going to say it's less and more, but there are going to be different types of being uncomfortable. You
Sure.
know, when, like you said, when you hit a wall in something, and I'm just like, all right, so until we meet again, X, Y, and Z, you may be uncomfortable with X, Y, and Z, but that's okay. We know where we are. Like you said, we know the limitation right there. So I like this question. Even though I waved the white flag and couldn't really answer it, I really like it. And I'm definitely going to go back to the drawing board on this one after
Yeah,
the
man.
show.
Yeah, man. I think, and I've shared this, and my promise to everybody, because we've already extended beyond an hour, we're not going to do final thoughts. I think for me, and I share this with everybody. You've heard us say this before in the show. There's three people working within you, but the three people that's working within you are working simultaneously. You have to decide which one is going to be the voice that gives you the most influence. So you got the person,
Mhm.
your past person, you got your present person, you got your future person. Well, your present person is just the active person in your life. I'll say it again. The present person is just the active person in your life. A lot of times what we do is we give our past person more voice than we give our future person. The person who talks the most is the person who influenced you. I say it again. The person who talks the most is the person who influenced you. A lot of times we give too much voice to our past person, and therefore we're actively implementing the plans that our past person is telling us. So what you end up doing is living your life in reverse, but yet you're not seeing anything manifest differently than what you did last year or the year before that, or whatever the case may be. And it's not that I'm talking doing things that are different. I'm talking about doing things differently. It's a big difference in those two things. A lot of times, what we do is we chase doing things that are different, thinking that that's growth. That is not growth. Let me say it again. Doing things that are different is not an indicator of growth. It's just an indicator of doing things different. So, doing things differently is an indicator of growth. So that shows me that I stopped listening to this person up here and I've given more voice to this person up here. Why do I want to give more voice to this person up here? Because this person up here is trying to give you advice on how to get to where they are. Let me say that part again for the people who missed it and it went over their head of the person in the back who didn't hear me. This person up here is trying to give you advice on how to get to where they are right now. That's why I say that there are three people working at the exact same time. And if you've ever lived for anything longer than a week, I say, and you've seen a glimpse of something, and it has nothing to do with the life that you're currently living, that was the person in your future trying to give you some advice. But what you're doing is you're shutting that down because it's like, oh, that just a dream. Could be, or maybe that's your future self trying to communicate with you, but you're not dialed into their frequency. That's a whole nother conversation that I love to get into, but we don't have the time.
Mm. Yeah, I like it though. I like that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Last question,
Uh-huh.
and it really kind of goes in line with what I'm just saying. From
Mhm.
passive to powerhouse. Let me say it again. This is me. This is
Mhm.
passive. This is powerhouse. So from passive to powerhouse, how can you weaponize past pain points into rocket fuel for success?
Mm.
This is just a question that we have for the people.
I
And
like this.
yeah,
I like this, and this kind of talks about those three people in a little bit, in my opinion. You know, everything that we've gone through, we've gone through. You know what I'm saying? And I like when you can take where you were and you can actually see where you are right now. I think that's a good thing. I think a lot of times people get stuck and say, and I would give a perfect example. For years, you know, I have some degrees, and in all of my degrees, I maintained a B average. I just graduated with my master's in 2022. So that was only a few years, 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, because it was like May time. In high school, Unc was C's and D's. Every once in a while, the sun will shine on the dog's behind. and I'll squeak all the B. I got A's in PE, lunch, and recess. Other than that, everything else was a struggle because I didn't want to do it. But what I did was after the associates, still telling everybody, yeah, I'm a CD student. After the bachelor's, CD student. After the master's, CD student. I had to learn how to weaponize my past and then say, you know what? Yes, in high school, that's what you were. But ever since you went to the degree path, that's no longer you. So I had to learn how to change my thought process and see myself as a different person. Once I was able to weaponize my past and see the progress where I came from, then it was on after that.
Yeah.
I was like, man, so now I'm in a position as a counselor. And I tell people, I'm like, man, I was a CD student in high school, but look where I'm at right now. So I'm like, bro, you don't have to stay stuck in the past. You can allow your past and the progress that you've made up until right now fuel all of that stuff, weaponize all of that stuff. So that's what I think in response to this question is using those negatives, using those things that you've overcome to kind of, like I said, weaponize the past and like you said, get to the future. So I'm
I,
all for this.
yeah, I hear that, and I'm laughing because I got a friend of mine that reminds me all the time that C's get degrees. Um, and,
They
and
do,
and I don't want to put you
but
on the
not in the masters.
right. Exactly.
Don't work.
I don't want to put you on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to ask a question.
Yep.
If you did not have a 4.0 GPA
Mm-hmm.
in your master's program, and I did
Mm-hmm.
not have a 4.0 GPA, I'm
I
gonna
didn't either.
be honest. Do you believe, based upon what you know about coaching right now, that if you
Mm-hmm.
had that if you had an academic coach, right? And I'll explain what an academic coach is here in a second, because
Mm-hmm.
somebody when they heard me say academic coach, they're thinking tutor. It's not a tutor.
Mm-hmm.
If you had an academic coach, do you think the academic coach could have coached her to a 4.0? Now, what's an academic coach? An academic coach is someone that sits down and talks to you about how do you approach your methodology of school, like what is like your way of doing your lessons and things of that nature. And I tell you, for me, I'll be completely transparent. 7 p.m. each night, my phone went on do not disturb from 7 to 10. That was Sunday to Sunday, unless it was like unless a limb fell off or an ambulance showed up. Don't call me. I'm not answering the phone. It's right. But that was what I did for me because I wanted to make sure that I was reading all these doggone books back here. So if you had an academic coach that sat down, talk with you about your approach to it, to your academic studies, and then they help you to think about it and come up with better solutions, do you think that coach could have helped you to a 4.0?
I think that coach could have definitely helped me get better grades. I don't know about 4.0, just being what Unc know about
Oh,
himself,
I got you.
but I do think that if 4.0 was my goal, if I had an academic coach, I do believe that I could have got there.
Yeah,
Do believe I could have got there. Yep.
yeah, and I
Or
think
darn near close.
and I
Yep.
think that's the thing. And I just wanted to ask that question because that's one of the benefits of coaching, right? Like
Mhm.
you said, I don't know if they'd, get me to 4.0, but I think I could have got close. If I was your
Limiting
academic,
beliefs.
yeah, exactly. If I was your academic coach, I'd have been like, why not a 4.0?
Uh-huh.
Why do you believe that you can't get a 4.0? And trust me when
Mhm.
I say why questions are dangerous, but you have to be skilled enough to know how to ask a why question and where to go after the
Mhm.
answers given. He and I have a relationship so I know he won't be offended by a why question.
At all.
The key is going back to the three persons I just talked about. The person in the past, in most cases, should be teaching me lessons. The person in the future should be giving me advice.
Mm.
Let me say it again. The person in the past should be teaching me lessons. The person in the future should be giving me advice. Like I said previously, some of us are taking advice from the person in the past. I'm gonna say it again. Some of us are taking advice from the person in the past and missing the lessons from the person in the future. Because if you're gonna do it in reverse, it has to work in reverse.
Mhm.
If I take a pair of binoculars and turn them around and I put the big lens against my face, it still works.
Mhm.
So if I'm taking advice from the person in the past, I'm not listening to the lessons from the person in the future. And in most cases, the person in the future is trying to tell me to stop listening to the person in the past. So I'm shutting that down and I'm listening closer to this. Why am I saying all of this? Because if the person in the past is teaching me lesson and the person in the future is giving me advice, the coach is in the middle with me and walking me through the advice that is actually being given. The coach is responsible for trying to tune. You know the old radios. You know how you had to turn that knob and you get then you get to that sweet spot and then you hear whatever it is you're trying to tune into loud and clear. That's the job of the coach to kind of help you turn that dial and get closer so you can hear the advice clearly. Now you have a three-way conversation going. You got the coach asking you questions to to try to bypass the limitations of your belief so that you can hear the advice. Then you tell the coach the advice from the person in the future. Now the coach asks you another question based upon that advice. That's what that looks like. Most people are afraid of that, and I don't know why. It is the most pleasant and amazing spot for you to be in. Like I would and some people already know when I talk about time within itself, like that was just a snippet of the
Mhm.
conversation I have about time. But when I talk about time within itself, man, oh man, it's an awesome conversation. So that's just kind of like my response to this. I want to open the floor for you to say anything else before we call it an evening.
Man, that was the mic drop right there. That was I mean, you wrapped it up, sealed it with the bow. I'll say bow.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, that was a great ending to this conversation. So
yeah. I
yeah,
appreciate that.
all the stuff. Yeah, man.
I appreciate that. Listen, I want to apologize to everybody. First of all, I
Mhm.
apologize that it took us this long to have this conversation with you guys. Um, So, charge it to our excitement to be able to come and share in conversation with
Mhm.
you. But don't charge it to our heart. We have a heart for you guys. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's important for us to have this conversation. So, that being said, on behalf of my good friend, the Uncle Junior, the consistency coach, my name is Dwayne Dwight, a mindset coach. And listen, you guys continue to be awesome. Let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else. And we'll see you next week on Coach's Corner.